Hi, my name is Orit, and I will be talking about Israel today, about the war that it's facing right now, and how it started, and what made it happen from the beginning, or what was the situation that allowed such horrific actions and war and killing from Hamas towards Israeli citizens. Um, if you didn't know, then Israel uh, has been in a war over than a year with Hamas, the terrorist organization that controls Gaza, that was elected democratically by the people of Gaza. It's declared a known terrorist organization by many other countries and organizations, so there's no dispute about their agenda and about their ways of going about how to force themselves in a terror manner towards the other side, which in this case today is Israel. But it's obviously something that is bigger. It's not just against Israel, it's against what Israel represents. And what Israel represents is development, and it's westernized country. Hamas is not about being westernized. It's all about being more religious and being more extreme about how they force it on others. Also in Gaza, to some people, because most of the people there, as I will tell later, are supportive of them, and they were elected by the free will of the people from Gaza. So what happened is that a year before the war started, more or less a year before, Israel was had its own in-house conflict. The two sides, or two separate groups within the Israeli population, have clashed. And this is again a clash that you can see everywhere in the world today. Like when you see the right wings or the left wings, or the more conservative, or the everybody's going more to the extreme. And there is once you go to more extreme because of new circumstances, new world that are that is being created again by bigger forces. So you can see that once you get too radical, or to the two sides of the extremes, then each one is pulling to his own side, and it can just create a fracture in society. You can see it also in the US. You can see it in many other countries, westernized countries. And a lot of the time, the reason, especially in Europe, has to do with immigration, also in the US. So there are different types of immigration, but the basis of it is immigration, not just, but it's a major factor. So Israel had a fracture in its society between two different parties, two different sides, and it was on the verge of civil war right before the war with Hamas started. And because it was going on for a year, the enemy, Hamas, this terrorist organizations, have been watching the Israeli news. That's why the media is so important, and that's why I'm doing this, because the media is very, very, very important. It influences how people perceptions about events and situations, people perceptions of what's going on in different places. And when the Israeli media have shown on a daily basis riots within Israel against the government and what they were about to do, which I'm not going to go into it right now. There's going to be a separate issue, a separate episode about the Israeli deep state and the legislation that the Ministry of Justice wants to put in place. So this is a different thing. Also about the the Attorney General. All that will be discussed in a separate episode. Also about Eli Feldstein and the other soldiers that are with him, and many other things that will be covered in a different episode, and that would be my episode that will criticize the Israeli government at this point. Not the government, but the system, the Israeli system and how it works. So the terrorist organization Hamas it didn't have to do much to notice it because it was there every day and they follow the Israeli news, but they have followed it, and they have and it was their time. They felt it was their time to make the move because while they were writing against the Israeli government within Israel, the Israeli citizens that were against that the moves that the government was legally allowed to do and should have done, in my personal opinion, and should do as soon as possible. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been in this situation in the first place. But again, we'll talk about it later. So they were calling for the reserves, the people in reserves, not to serve when they are called for reserves. And they were proud of it, and they were like yelling it and shouting it. So the enemy heard them. And we're talking about pilots, which, in my personal opinion, this is a betrayal. This is a betrayal to your country if you're refusing to serve while there is a war, and not just refusing to serve while there's a war, when you're actually leading an agenda of an organization that is, the whole purpose of it is to not serve because you don't agree with the government, and that by itself is, again, my personal opinion, is betrayal, and it's and they're trying to rule over like the military will rule rather than the elected officials. Again, that's something that we'll discuss later. But the terrorist organization, Hamas organization, have noticed it. Obviously, Iran, it runs by Iran. When I'm saying terrorist organization Hamas, I'm talking about Iran, talking about Hezbollah, Lebanon. It's a branch, but the main one also is Qatar. So we have a whole party of different interests that are actually funding all of this, and they're backed by those countries, and that's why this war is not against per se Hamas, but it's against Iran. So terrorist organization Hamas have noticed it, and they found their time. They thought this was the best time to do it, and they did it. Also, there's a matter of how did the government didn't know, because we have such an amazing army, which it is. So how did the government didn't know? But I'll tell you now, they didn't know because the prime minister didn't know, because the head of the military didn't think it was important enough to wake up Bibi Netanyahu at 4 a.m. or 2 a.m. And tell them about this threatening news, and they just exclude him from that information, and he was only notified about it at 6:30 when it actually happened, and that was too late to do anything. again, this is the army trying or thinking that he knows better than the elected people. But again, we'll go back to that in some other time. So they went into those different kibbutzim, and those the Hamas entered to different kibbutzim, and they and the cities, and they've murdered and killed and butchered thousands, more than 1,000 people. And right now, they held hostage about 250, I think 251 people in hostage, whether dead or alive. And now they have 101 of today. This is the most updated number. They have 101 hostages in their hands. They're vicious. They're cruel. And what's for me baffling is that there still today people outside of Israel, obviously, but in different countries, they're still chanting and noting and supporting Hamas without, maybe they do understand, but maybe without understanding that Hamas is a terrorist organization. There's no doubt about it. It's not something that is in dispute or in discussion, or it's just a fact. So there's still people who are supporting them, and there's still people who are protesting against Israel fighting the Hamas, which is I don't seem to understand it. If you want to protest, please protest, but protest for the release of the innocent people, if there are maybe very few in Gaza. Protest for that. Protest for the release of their hostage from Hamas leadership. At the end of the day, Hamas is the terrorist organization. Israel is in war with Hamas for the past year. We are hoping to see all of the hostages back home to their families, hopefully alive. We know that a lot of them are not alive, so at least for the family to have a respectful burial and a place to go for the loved ones. So this is the first episode about Israel and the war, just in a nutshell. As I said, I know it's more than 10 minutes, but still, there's so much to say about this. But it was just important for me to give you those bits and pieces of different things that I think I'm going to talk later that have an integral relations to the war and where Israel is today and why is it in that situation. So please stay tuned.